Few athletes have ever worn pressure as comfortably as Joe Montana. When games tightened and moments grew heavier, he didn't panic. He thrived. They called him Joe Cool for a reason. 4 Super Bowl appearances, 4 Super Bowl wins, 0 losses. In an era stacked with legends, Montana stood apart, not just for the trophies, but for the way he won them. Calm, efficient, deadly when it mattered most. But to truly understand how a kid from a small Pennsylvania steel town became the face of clutch football, we need to rewind the clock. This is the story of Joe Montana, the quiet assassin, the comeback king, and one of the greatest quarterbacks the game has ever seen. Western Pennsylvania, tough, cold, and built on hard work. It's where legends like Namath, Unitas, and Marino were born. And from a small steel town called Monongahela came one more, Joe Montana. At Ringgold High, Joe was a natural. Basketball, baseball, football, he led in all. But on the field, his poise set him apart. When college came calling, he chose Notre Dame, following his hero, Terry Hanratty. But success didn't come easy. He sat his first year, then fought through injury the next. In 1977, given one chance against Purdue, Montana led a 10-point comeback and never looked back. Notre Dame went 11-1 and won the national championship. Joe Montana was now a star. Then came his greatest college moment, the 1979 Cotton Bowl. Down 34-12, sick with the flu, he returned to lead 3 late touchdowns. Final score, Notre Dame 35, Houston 34. That day, the comeback kid was born. Calm under pressure, cool in chaos. After that legendary Cotton Bowl comeback, Joe Montana's NFL dream finally became real. But it didn't start with glamour. It started with patience. In 1979, he was drafted in the 3rd round, 82nd overall, by the San Francisco 49ers, a broken team searching for an identity. They had a new head coach, Bill Walsh, a quiet genius with a radical plan, the West Coast offense. It wasn't built on power or deep throws. It was about precision, timing, quick passes that required nerves of steel. And for Walsh, Montana was the perfect fit. Calm, accurate, poised beyond his years. But early on, Joe wasn't the guy. He sat behind veteran Steve DeBerg, waiting for his chance. Just like at Notre Dame, he held kicks, watched film, and learned the new system from the inside out. Then in 1980, everything changed. The team was losing, frustration rising, and Walsh finally turned to Montana. His big moment came against the New Orleans Saints, down 35-7 at halftime. But Joe didn't flinch. He led drive after drive, touchdown after touchdown, until the Niners pulled off the largest comeback in NFL history at the time, 38-35 in overtime. The comeback kid had officially arrived in the NFL. By 1981, Montana was the full-time starter. And that year, San Francisco transformed from a joke to a juggernaut. They went 13-3, best in the NFC, with Montana leading the league in completion percentage. Then came the moment that changed football forever, the catch. January 10th, 1982, NFC Championship game. 49ers versus Cowboys. San Francisco down 27-21, less than a minute left. Walsh called a sprint right option. Montana rolled right, chased by defenders, fading back toward the sideline. And just when it looked like he was throwing the ball away, he floated it high toward the end zone. Dwight Clark leapt, stretched, and caught it. Touchdown. San Francisco 28, Dallas 27. That single play ended a decade of heartbreak and started a dynasty. 2 weeks later, in Super Bowl 16, Montana faced the Cincinnati Bengals, the biggest stage, the brightest lights, and as always, no fear. He threw for 1 touchdown, ran for another, and controlled the game from start to finish. The 49ers built a 20-0 lead and held off a late rally to win 26-21. Montana was named Super Bowl MVP. In just his 2nd year as a starter, he had taken a broken franchise and turned it into a champion. The Joe Cool legend had officially begun. By the mid-1980s, Joe Montana had everything. 2 Super Bowl rings, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and the reputation of a man who simply didn't lose when it mattered most. But even legends get tested. And in 1986, Joe Montana met his greatest challenge yet. On opening day against Tampa Bay, a crushing hit left him with a serious back injury, a ruptured disc. Doctors warned he might never play again. For most, that would have been the end, but not Joe. He underwent surgery, pushed through rehab, and, unbelievably, returned just 9 weeks later. Still hurting, still fragile, but playing. That was Joe Montana. The season ended painfully, a 49-3 playoff loss to the Giants, and the questions began. Was Joe's time running out? The next year brought more chaos. Another player strike, locker room division, and a new shadow over Montana's shoulder. A young, mobile quarterback named Steve Young. Montana still played brilliantly, throwing a career-high 31 touchdowns. But when the playoffs came, he struggled. The 49ers were upset by Minnesota, and for the first time, Bill Walsh benched him. Montana, the face of the dynasty, was replaced. The media exploded. Fans divided. And for the first time, Joe Montana's career looked uncertain. In 1988, he entered the season injured and frustrated. Through 11 games, the team sat at 6-5. The dynasty felt like it was dying. But then, everything changed. Walsh gave Joe the reins again, fully, completely, and what followed was pure magic. Montana led the 49ers on a furious run to the playoffs. Every drive, every throw, that same unshakable calm returned. In Super Bowl 23, they met the Cincinnati Bengals again. It was a defensive slugfest, ugly, physical, exhausting. With 3 minutes left, the 49ers trailed 16-13, pinned at their own 8-yard line. 92 yards from glory. And that's when Joe Montana looked up in the huddle, pointed into the stands, and smiled. Hey, isn't that John Candy sitting over there? Even in the biggest moment of his life, calm. The team relaxed. Then Joe went to work. 11 plays later, with 34 seconds left, he hit John Taylor across the middle. Touchdown. 49ers win, another Super Bowl, and another MVP. The drive became one of the greatest in NFL history, a 92-yard masterpiece of focus, patience, and poise. Then came 1989, the most dominant season of Joe's career. 14 wins, 2 losses, over 70% of his passes completed. In the playoffs, he was untouchable, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. And in Super Bowl 24, Montana destroyed John Elway's Broncos, 55-10, 5 touchdowns, another MVP, 4 rings, 4 Super Bowls, no losses. By 1990, he won back-to-back league MVPs and looked unstoppable until fate struck again. In the NFC Championship against the Giants, Montana was crushed from behind by Leonard Marshall. Broken ribs, bruised sternum. He left the field barely able to breathe. It would take 2 years to recover. That hit marked the end of an era. The dynasty wasn't over, but Joe's reign was. As the 90s began, Steve Young was rising. The future had arrived, and for Joe Montana, the fight to hold on to his legacy was about to begin. By the early 1990s, time was catching up. Joe Montana, once the face of perfection, was now battling pain, rehab, and reality. The injuries from that 1990 NFC title game lingered. He missed the entire 1991 season and most of 1992. And in his absence, Steve Young was thriving, winning MVPs, leading the league, carrying the 49ers forward. For the first time, San Francisco had a quarterback controversy. Fans were divided. Montana versus Young. Past versus future. In 1992, late in the season, Montana finally returned, just one last time at Candlestick Park. When he ran out of that tunnel, the roar was deafening. It wasn't a comeback, it was a farewell. And fittingly, he delivered one more perfect drive. 2 minutes left, down on the scoreboard. Montana marched the 49ers down the field, hit a touchdown, and walked off smiling. The crowd knew that was the last time they'd see their Joe. Calm in chaos, cool in control. In 1993, he was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. A new chapter, a new challenge. Most thought he was finished, but Joe wasn't built to fade quietly. In his first season, he led the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game, their deepest playoff run in decades. In clutch moments, he was still the same Joe Cool, standing tall, reading defenses, finding open men under pressure. He didn't win another Super Bowl, but he reminded everyone of who he was, the ultimate competitor. After the 1994 season, he finally stepped away. No drama, no tears, just calm, gratitude, and grace, exactly as he played. When Joe Montana retired, he left behind 4 Super Bowl titles, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 NFL MVPs, and 0 losses on the game's biggest stage. But his real legacy isn't in the numbers. It's in how he played. When the world seemed to spin out of control, when the lights were brightest and the pressure unbearable, Joe Montana stayed calm, always. He wasn't the loudest, the biggest, or the fastest, but he was the one who never blinked, the one who believed, always, that there was time for one more drive. That's why he's remembered not just as one of the greatest quarterbacks, but as a symbol of composure, confidence, and quiet greatness. Joe Montana, the calm within chaos. And that That is the story of Joe Montana, the calm within chaos, the man who redefined pressure, and the quarterback who taught the world that greatness doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers. If you felt that chill when the catch happened, if you've ever believed in comebacks or just love stories of pure determination, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got more stories like this, of legends, of moments, of greatness that can never be forgotten. Drop a comment below. Who's your all-time favorite quarterback, and what story should we tell next?